Major Kira is in labor. Miles and Keiko O'Brien start their own percussion band. And Odo is a father. Kind of. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc, Lofton.
Odo is a father. That's clever. Very nice.
Thanks. My name is Ryan T. Husk.
What's everybody?
And today we are doing a review of Deep Space Nine, Season 5, Episode 12, The Begotten, written by Renee Echevarria. I never know if it's where the accent is on that one. And it's directed by...
I think you're saying you're right, but he always gives us the American pronunciation, Echevarria, so I think that's what we would say, but okay. I think you're pronouncing it the way it's supposed to be, the ethnic translation.
We heard our guest, Jack Trevino, call him Renee Echevarria, and being that, he's probably right, so maybe we just call them both. I don't know. Speaking of which, directed by Jesus Salvador Trevino. Speaking of Jack Trevino, this guy's got the same last name. I don't know if they're related in any way.
Very good segue.
This was January 27th, 1997, after a 2-week hiatus, it seems. How are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm looking up Jesus Salvador Trevino to see his face, to see if I recognize his face.
Yeah, see if he's done anything else.
Yeah.
Any other episodes.
I do remember his face, yes. Seems here that he's really involved with the Chicano movement.
Nice.
So he's been really active, and that's another thing about DS9 is like even the directors they made their directors diverse. We talked to many different directors who got a chance to showcase their thing. And in this case, we have somebody, I believe, who was a Mexican American. Mm-hmm. So kudos to Deep Space Nine for staying true to their diversity.
Totally. And it seems that he's done 3 episodes of Deep Space Nine, this being the first, which is why we hadn't heard his name before, and 5 episodes of Voyager. So that's pretty cool. He did Fair Trade, Day of Honor, Concerning Flight, Retrospect, and Vis-a-Vis for Voyager. And for Deep Space Nine, he did The Begotten, Sons and Daughters, and The Reckoning. So,
The Reckoning.
Let's see if he did any Enterprise. No Enterprise, though.
I don't know if I worked with him, because I don't think I'm in any of these episodes that he worked on. But I was around the set a lot, so I would see people, and his face definitely looks familiar.
Now, we also want to give a big shout out today to our friend, Mr. TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri, because TJ's out.
TJ.
We do love ourselves some TJ. He always brings in the flair and a ton of knowledge. He's definitely one of our most knowledgeable friends and supporters. And he's tons of fun, tons of positivity, and he gets the most musical references out of anybody.
Yes, he does.
Thank goodness for that. Somebody got to.
But he's actually got super knowledge in Star Trek, too.
Mm-hmm.
He knows pretty much all the episodes, all the characters. I mean, he's a wealth of knowledge, this guy, TJ Jackson-Bey. So we love having him around.
The beverage made me thirsty.
Adding.
Cheers. Cheers, TJ.
Okay. Cheers to you. Here's looking at you, TJ.
All right. Speaking of which, what's up with prune juice? Now Odo's drinking prune juice?
I don't understand it because I stayed away from prune juice the entire time I was on the station. So I don't know why everybody's passing. Yeah, thank goodness. I don't know why prune juice is such a big thing. I guess the writers must be doing prune juice. We have to ask Ira and the guys what their obsession with prune juice is. Maybe they were irregular.
There were a couple things that when I was watching this, I wanted to ask Robert Hewitt Wolf or Ira Stephen Bear because they'd have a good idea, or Renee. I mean, it'd be great to get Renee on the show. Let's definitely get Renee on the show.
Let's do that.
He's written so many great episodes. I've never met him before, but what's he like? If you've met him,
I have, but I don't know him as well as I know the other writers because he is kind of him and Hans are the people that I know the least. Just didn't spend as much time getting to know them or seeing them in conventions. I think a lot of our relationships and personal connections have grown throughout the years because of the conventions and seeing each other there. So it's allowed us to kind of get to know each other more personally. There was an ongoing joke that none of the cast could identify who the writers were if they were all put in a lineup. So that was a running joke for a while, that nobody would be able to figure out who was who. So
that's funny.
That there's always that.
Yeah. So what I wanted to ask them, there were a couple questions. One's kind of a spoiler, so we'll have to ask them another time. But one is, what the heck, and maybe, the director would have a better idea, Jesus, what the heck was Odo's baby made out of? So when he was in a glass, he looked like orange marmalade. But then when he was poured out, I thought it was like castor oil. Now, do you have any guesses?
It did look like orange marmalade. No, I definitely thought about the marmalade. And then, I told you, my daughter's big on playing with slime.
Nice.
I think that's the new craze for kids nowadays, is just playing with slime. And so when I watched it, I was like, wow, we were playing with slime way before it became fashionable.
Yeah. And remember there was like that kids show, Double Dare, they would get slimed and stuff.
Oh, yes.
Slime was pretty big back then, yeah.
It was. Nickelodeon made that possible for us. Thank you.
Now, luckily, right before we record the show, our good friend, shout out to Eve England out in Wales, who messaged us and actually told us what it's made of, which is great. It's made out of, let me check notes, Murphy's Oil Soap. That is what it was, Murphy's Oil Soap. Because I was kind of watching, it's obviously something very viscous, but they had to have something that sticks together, but that doesn't stick to the container, because otherwise and it needs to be able to pour out quickly, but still stay, cohesive. So Murphy's Oil Soap, whatever the hell that is, that's what it was.
Murphy's Oil Soap, I think it's for wood. But I had no idea. I was a little bit curious about that. And when I was watching some of the scenes where he's playing with the slime, or the slime.
Playing with
it. I was thinking to myself, because there was a moment there where he was pouring it out. And I was thinking, like, if he doesn't get it all out and there's like residual, like, have you just lost part of the person, right?
Yes.
The entity.
I saw the same thing. And I was fixated on that glass jar when he was doing that. I'm like, there's still some in there. That's why he's growing. That's why it's growing so slowly. Is because they're leaving his fingers over here. There's an ear over there.
Every time they pour him into a new bowl or something, he loses about 1% or 2% of his body mass. And so I'm just thinking, like, I was thinking, when you make pancakes or something and you mix up all the batter and then you try to scrape it down. Yeah. I was like, he needs a scraper. Odo needs like some kind of scooper scraper thing so you can get it all out.
Like a wooden spoon or something.
Like a wooden spoon. We'll take a plastic scraper. Anything that would just get it all out.
Or like a finger. He could do one of these things where he does the finger.
That would have worked perfectly. And then it would have made the thing go away in my head. I would have said, there's just like pancake batter or cookie dough. So I thought that was funny, and I couldn't get it out of my head. Every time I would see him play with it, I would think exactly what we're talking about, like how much of his mass is being lost in the transfer
every time.
And that's only because they had to use some substance, obviously. And if it's a liquid, then you're going to get residue. You're going to get that sticky, whatever it is. I think they did their best job to kind of work around it. They didn't really mention it, but it was in the back of my head. It clearly was in the back of yours.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Murphy's oil soap.
It was either that or they would have to do VFX for it, which is what they've done in the past with the changelings, when they're moving around and stuff. And maybe in this case, that might have been better because then there wouldn't be that it wouldn't look quite as real, but at least we wouldn't be like watching them, kill that poor baby bit by bit.
Yeah, it is a wood soap. I'm looking at it here. It is something you use for cleaning up your wood furniture. I'm pretty sure they made it thicker. I don't know if they added something to the Murphy's to just make it a little bit more thick in its consistency, because usually it's like really liquidy. And that when there were moments when he was pouring it, it kind of clumped together. There were like clumps of it together. But that's just a little nitpick. It's not pertinent to the story.
Did someone say nitpick? So before we get too deep into the story, which really had it was a very, there weren't a ton of twists and turns in this story. It was, a pretty straight through line. But one thing I want to mention is that there was a Uridian mentioned by Quark. He says, a Uridian I've been dealing with sold me something that might interest you. That's when he had the baby in a jar or whatever it was. And Uridian is one of my favorite aliens, kind of like Bolians. So whenever I see one or hear about one, my ears perk up. They are Cirroc. You've seen them once or twice in the background. They're like a prune face, like a super wrinkly prune face. And what they are, I believe, and they've kind of got like a bisected forehead. And what they are, I believe, is like information smugglers. So they're, professional gossipers, I guess. Uridians, professional gossipers of the galaxy. But anyway, I like them a lot. They have
do they deal in smuggling stuff, huh?
Yeah, smuggling information. It's kind of their thing. Okay. Yeah, watch. I'll pull one up super quick. For everybody that doesn't know what a Uridian is, you're about to find out. These guys. So these are the guys, you see them every once in a while, they're usually in the background or they're in Quark's bar. They have like information to give somebody. Sometimes they have hair, which is
not to be confused, ladies and gentlemen, with Uridians. Those are different race.
Kinda. They're pretty similar. All right.
So that's who sold Quark the founder, right?
Mm-hmm. I also had a couple. No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm going to let you.
I was just saying. I also had a couple false starts on NAMS today. They mentioned Dr. Mora, so I was like, "Ooh, Dr. Mora, NAM," and then he showed up. And then they mentioned Shakar, and I'm like, "Whoa, another one for Shakar! Boy, he gets a lot of NAMS." Yeah. And then he pops in. I'm like, "Okay, no NAMS today." I didn't. I guess Worf.
Yeah, I didn't see it either. I thought Shakar was going to be one too. You're right.
Maybe Worf.
What was the Worf reference? Was he
twice? Once when they mentioned the prune juice, I believe, and then once right after when Bashir recommended Worf's morning exercise class to Odo. He's like, "Oh, you should try, that." But I don't know if those really count. If he gets, if Worf is credited in every episode, and. I don't know. Was he even in this episode, though?
No, I didn't see Worf in this. Yes, he was. He comes up to Odo and asks him, "Why are you talking to your..."
Yes, the best line. What am I forgetting this? Why are you talking to your beverage?
Yeah, that was Worf's cameo.
Yeah, no, that was actually the best line. Sisko,
It was the best line.
Captain Sisko had a great
he had a nice schedule, a nice easy work schedule for him on this episode.
Mm-hmm. One day, but it was a good moment for him because that's when we see the dilemma that Dr. Mora had, which was Odo thought Dr. Mora was some dick torturing him and poking him and prodding him. But then finally, when Sisko is passing along the information that like, hey, you need to make progress with this thing or you're going to lose your baby, basically. And then Dr. Mora says, now you see the situation that I was under. And that kind of begins that turn a little bit where Dr. Mora goes from the guy that Odo hates and we're supposed to not really like into, a very, at the very least, a pitiable character, like somebody that we feel sorry for, that he's been vilified. But, he was, what would we do in that position? You don't want to lose this thing that you care about. So you kind of have to poke it and prod it, and it works. Apparently it was working, right? I don't know.
Yeah,
there was definitely a lot of
there was a lot of subtext there. They basically made it look like Odo was tortured or subjected to experiments that scarred him and traumatized him emotionally and mentally, right? Mm-hmm. And that was the whole subtext there. And basically what Dr. Mora was explaining was, I'm working with a completely unknown thing. I don't know what to expect. I don't know what I didn't even know that what I was doing to you in that liquid form would even be remembered by you till this moment.
Right. They didn't even know it was a life form at first.
Right. And I think in the beginning, he goes to like measure the mass of the liquid. And another time he was trying to measure the volume of the liquid. So he's doing very mathematical things. I mean, mass, volume, density, height, weight. I mean, these are like normal type of measurement, scientific observations that you would take in the course of investigating anything. So I don't feel like they really brought anything that was ridiculous to the table. Now, if Dr. Morris says, hey, let's put this in the microwave and boil it and see what happens to it, or something like that, then you would say, okay, that's a little bit ridiculous. But measuring how much it weighs, like, I don't see how that could trigger Odo to say, this is ridiculous.
How dare you?
Yeah, how dare you take a picture of it, a photograph. It's like, all right. So yeah, it was hard for me to feel the same kind of way that Odo was feeling about Dr. Mora. I didn't really buy it that he was this Dr. Mengele type of ruthless person who had no regard for whatever he was doing. I just couldn't. They didn't sell me on that, actually.
Right, because he wasn't doing the things to the baby that he did to Odo. Like, he was definitely put Odo through more than Odo was willing to put the baby through. Like they said, it was like a little shock, in that bowl. And actually that shock, that bowl idea, I thought was kind of the best idea. It was really interesting where they said, look, basically the outside of this bowl, or the outside of this, curved plate, has a slight shock, but the middle doesn't. And let's see how long it takes for this goo to figure out that the middle doesn't, and then to move itself into the middle. And I thought they also did a good job of explaining the mentality of the life form, because I was able to put myself in that baby's mindset because of the way they described it well. Like when they said, look, it's just happy to just relax and sit there and be goo. That is the easiest state. That is its relaxed state, like lying down, like laying in bed, or whatever. And there are now these outside forces trying to tell the baby, hey, do this shape or do that shape. but that's not its natural state, and it's difficult, and it's work, and the baby doesn't want to do that. It doesn't feel natural to it. And so it was really interesting because the way they explained it, I was like, oh, that works. I can put myself, especially being how lazy I am, I could put myself in the baby's shoes and be like, yeah, that baby just wants to relax. It just wants to sit back and like soak things up, maybe look around or be aware of what's going on, but it doesn't want to work. It doesn't want to be a cup or an Albanian, whatever hawk, So I really like the description.
No, I see what you're saying. My thing was a little bit about how Odo was so knowledgeable, or I guess he was talking to it as if it was him, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is how I would have wanted to have been treated.
Yes.
I would have wanted to have been talked to. I would have wanted to have been, babied, and I would have wanted it to be like this. And the only difficulty I had was, I think, initially when he first sees this gelatinous mess inside of the little capsule, that he said, oh, it's sick. And I was thinking, well, how do you know it's sick? Like, especially considering the fact that you didn't grow up around the founders, you didn't grow up around your own people, so you don't actually have this kind of cultural knowledge about yourself and your own identity. I feel like because you were this outsider who was experimented on and all of these things, and I don't see how you would be able to recognize a sick one from a healthy one.
Right.
That was my dilemma.
What it was that, Odo was getting a little too excited, and then and he meant it like, whoa, this thing is sick. But Quark took it to mean like it's ill. So it actually ended up, getting him two bars or 2 strips of latinum off. So it worked out well. So, he just didn't want to say anything. But yeah.
And I love that negotiating that they were doing. Yeah. Because when at first he thought it was dead, he was like, "Oh, give me 5 strips for the dead one."
He's like, "No, it's alive."
When
10.
He said it's alive,
and then he said, "It's sick."
It's sick. All right,
8.
All right, 8. I thought that was great.
Which is going to give us our nitpick a little earlier than I would have planned, but it does remind me.
Uh oh, ladies and gentlemen, here it comes.
Here we go. We're about to have a break, but first the nitpick. A baby changeling is worth more than 8 strips of latinum. I mean, that's I mean, the going rate is a lot higher than that. I mean, that's a god to the Dominion. That's a god. Quark could have sold it for a planet. The Dominion would have given him a planet for the damn thing, right? I mean, anyway, let's take a quick break. And on the other side, boy, oh boy, are we going to get into the value of an infant changeling. You are not going to want to miss
never
this.
Thought great question, the value. What was the right value?
Mm-hmm. Here we go. We'll be right back on the 7th Rule. Everybody, welcome back to the 7th Rule with Cirroc, Lofton.
Hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk. Today we're doing a review of Deep Space Nine, Season 5, Episode 12, The Begotten, directed by Jesus Salvador Trevino and written by Renee Echevarria. And we're talking about maybe that should be our question for the free-for-all. How much is a baby or infant changeling worth? I mean, if he sold it to Starfleet, it would be worth a huge amount. If he sold it to the Dominion, it would be worth even more. Of course, the Dominion would probably be like, it's worth your life, so give it to us right now. But you never know.
That's a good question. That's a very good question.
Real quick, the trivioids that may or may not have made the cutting room floor. Odo carries himself too rigidly. Odo drinks prune juice now. Julian recommends Worf's morning exercise class to Odo. Quark has a sick changeling. The founders send out their babies all over the galaxy. There was a really interesting line about that, too, where he said, what better way to gauge a race than to see how they treat the weak and vulnerable, which was really cool. Kira is in labor. Odo invites Dr. Mora to observe the upbringing of the changeling baby. Miles and Keiko start their own percussion band. Odo's baby has only grown 17% in a week. Odo has a baby, kind of. Dr. Mora accuses Odo of whining about it. Miles rubs Kira's calves. A lot of S's at the end of that one. And Odo gets drunk and buys Quark a drink. So I know you want to. I want to. Are we going to talk about Kira's calves being rubbed by O'Brien, or?
Yes, that was exactly where I was going. So you beat me to it. O'Brien's been rubbing a lot of Kira in this episode, in this season, and it's surprising to me how cool Keiko is with it. Number one.
And how cool Shakar is with it.
Yeah, and how cool Shakar is with it too. Like, he didn't even say, hey. Pulp Fiction did a whole scene about rubbing a man's wife's feet. Right? Yeah. You don't rub a man's wife's foot. You get foot rub. You don't give a foot rub to a married woman.
Yeah.
The whole foot rub thing is kind of a sensitive thing. You just don't be giving out foot rubs. It's not like a shoulder rub where you just come up behind somebody and just do a little quick one of these.
He was working his way up the leg. He was all the way up to the knee.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw that. He was about to do the little bend the knee test and hit her with a thing. Never strike that from the record. But no, I thought that was funny. I was laughing at O'Brien in this episode. I thought he was fantastic in this episode because he plays this annoyed, irritated guy so well. I mean, when Shakar came in there late, the looks he was giving Keiko were classic. And when he was playing that little the thimble or whatever, the little bing.
I know.
Just we've all had, I don't know, all of us, but many of us have had music in school, some music class or another. I played the violin.
Me too.
I was sucked at it, but I tried. So, I'd have the violin in my chin, and I was, and I couldn't get it to sound.
We're like, dee, dee, do, 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 do.
Yeah. But more like shrieking. Like, it was just violin shrieks if you don't hit it the right way. It's like nails on a chalkboard sometimes.
Right. Sounds like Dr. Pulaski. That's a TNG.
So, but then there's that one person in your class. Oh, okay, that's why I went. But no, there's the one person in your class that has the thimble. Is that what it is?
The triangle. The triangle, yeah.
The triangle, yeah. And it's like, dude, you get the easiest. It's like just every once in a while, it's like a ting. Everybody's over here trying to do this and do. Yeah. People are playing the trumpets and all the sax or whatever instrument they have. But then there's that one guy who's holding this little thing. It's like, ting.
And then he puts it down and takes a break.
Job.
Right.
He puts it down to break. It was the easiest job, right? And so O'Brien doing that reminded me of those times in school of the one guy who just has to go ting every 5 minutes. And O'Brien was that guy. But I thought he was funny in the scene. And actually, you mentioned Nams. I thought Keiko would be kind of a Nam in this episode, too. I didn't think we would see Keiko in this episode. I don't know why. I just didn't think so. Of course, I didn't know what the hell the episode was going to be about. And then we see her, and the episode prior to this, her entire house was blown up, right? Wasn't it blown up by?
You're right. Yeah, their whole quarters were destroyed. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. Their whole quarters were destroyed by the Bajoran, by the guy trying to kill all the Bajoran freedom fighters, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so there was literally no I was waiting for just some mention of that, like we have to do the labor here because O'Brien blew up the house or something, something, right? So I didn't get the reference, and I was waiting for it. I'm like, they're not at his house. They're not at their own house because they can't be at their own house. They have to be somewhere else. Now,
that's a great point. I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah,
I was waiting for that. Yeah, so it's just having Keiko kind of pop up and looking all like oblivious to what's happening. It was a little bit weird without just a slight little subtle mention to me.
Yeah, you're right. Did it say where they were, where Kira was in labor?
Yeah, Keiko was with Molly visiting her parents.
No. Did they say where the labor was today? Was it in Kira's?
Oh, where the labor was.
Must have been Kira's quarters, old quarters.
Yeah, but it didn't look. It didn't look familiar. It actually looked like one of the Bajoran temple rooms, extra back room or something. It didn't look like a quarters because I didn't see the usual sofa or whatever it is.
Maybe
it kind of either looked like
Yeah, Bajorans are super ritualistic.
It either looked like a medical bay or something. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So maybe they just have a special room to do their ding and then push. They just have their own little special room for that comes with the maracas and the triangle.
Yeah, it seemed like a little ritualistic place, maybe like a labor room, because they had. I doubt if they were in the sick bay with the rest of everybody else that people would want to. You're disturbing my sleep over here with all that ching and cowbell or whatever. So yeah, I think it was a special designated room for that.
So if you were Shakar,
I don't know about you, but I was kind of, yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, if you were Shakar, how would you take it if you come in, your girlfriend is in labor, and there's a dude rubbing her calves, and then when you say I'll take over, he's saying, "Oh, I'll show you how to do it. Let me teach you. I know what she likes."
I would think it was weird. I would have been weirded out a little bit by it. First of all, the fact that they were having a private conversation and O'Brien is still there. Like, dude, I traveled a long way to be here. I'd like to talk to my woman in private if you don't mind.
Yeah.
That was a little bit weird. And I don't know, it just felt like, again, I think this is the first time we saw Shakar since Kira has been in labor, right? I don't think we've seen the two of them together since she's decided to carry the O'Brien's baby. So you would think, once again, I'm looking for a little, just a little conversation acknowledging either the awkwardness of this, right? Just something like Shakar is like, something where he says, at least I let you use my woman to have a baby, or some kind of acknowledgement of this is an unusual circumstance. This is not an everyday thing where a Bajoran woman carries a baby for another couple, right?
And it seemed
like he was just totally cool with. He seemed stiff, yeah.
Like he didn't really care that much.
Yeah, so that's why I felt like somewhere in the dialogue they needed to explain away something, at least why he was behaving in such a way, or make it so that he was acknowledge why, I'm stiff and I'm feeling awkward about this thing, doesn't feel right to me, but it's almost over with, so I'm here to support anyway. Something like along those lines, I felt like would have explained it a little bit better, because Shakar pops up. We haven't seen the dude in, I don't know, how long has she been pregnant? 9 months? We assume at least 9 months.
Right.
And he pops up and it's like she's having somebody else's baby. Clearly, if he wants to be with her in a serious way, that would be kind of an awkward thing for any guy who's dating a woman and wants to be with her and maybe start his own family with her, for her to be giving birth to another person's kid, right?
Right.
So there was no acknowledgement of that kind of extended kind of relationship. That's not the norm for what we see in the world. So
right,
I thought they could have explained that just a little bit better.
Yeah, because it's kind of a big thing. Like, even if your girlfriend is not pregnant with your baby, if she is pregnant at all, it still kind of feels like it's a big deal. Now, obviously, this is, uncharted territory because nobody's ever had a baby transported into them, but women have carried babies for other people in the past. That is definitely something that happens. But anyway, this was, so this is kind of a different situation, but I still feel like, that Shakar would be more present in this situation because his girlfriend is pregnant.
Yes, exactly. His girlfriend is pregnant, and you would think that he would say something like, they would acknowledge either why he hasn't been there. So I really wish I could have been here for this. Because you would think, I know that I would have been more supportive. I wouldn't just say, oh, well, it's O'Brien's baby, so let him deal with the foot massages and the late night morning sickness and the That's not my deal. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Nobody who really loves somebody, cares about somebody, is just going to write that off and say, well, you figure that part out. I'll be there when it's over or in the last day. You call me when labor. Like, you would think that he would be more supportive, more involved, maybe even calling O'Brien and talking with him. Is she okay? Give me some more information. Like, how has she been? Maybe even that kind of a conversation where he takes O'Brien to the side and say, I haven't been around, so can you fill me in on what's going on? And O'Brien kind of updates him and says, we blew up the station yesterday because they were trying to kill her and the baby. And, and have that awkward moment in front of everybody. So Keiko's there for it. So that's why the station blew up. Yeah, we weren't going to tell you because we didn't want you to get nervous. And then Shakar is upset, like, how come you didn't tell me that your life was in danger, and you didn't call back to Bejor and you almost got yourself killed. I don't know, some kind of more concern, in my opinion. He didn't seem as concerned. And any woman who's pregnant is in a very delicate state where they need to be checked up on. You got to check up on them. They got to know that you're there.
Right. There was another thing that I was kind of wondering about there, and Eve mentioned something similar, which was Bashir, because he's in and out a little bit, very little, like less than you would think a doctor would be. I mean, he's basically saying, hey, Dr. Mora and Odo, you got this, but I feel like he would be more present. Did it seem like Bashir was acting strangely or being weird or anything like that? Or was he just kind of, maybe he's just over, and he wasn't even delivering the baby, was he? So what was he doing? He wasn't delivering the baby. He wasn't saving the changeling baby's life. He only delivered the bad news.
Yeah, it was I thought he would be more involved with the changeling baby, maybe swapping notes with Dr. Mora. Like, oh, okay, 17 degrees. Oh, that's interesting. So is that the optimal temperature because of the da-da-da-da-da-da-da? Yes, 17 degrees Celsius would be the way because at that temperature, the da-da-da-da-da.
You should be writing this episode. That's
you would
perfect.
See some... But fill in the da-da-da-das, but that's basically what I would expect, like those kind of conversations. And you would expect that he would be there for Kira and O'Brien. I mean, O'Brien's his best friend, right? I guess he would be delivering the baby. Unless it's like a Bajoran custom thing for, the priestess or somebody who's appointed for that, designated for birthing babies is their sole responsibility, and they don't want. And then at least you would see that, like, shoo, get out of here, Dr. Bashir. This has nothing. This is about religious rights over medical rights or whatever the hell. And they would maybe escort him out of the room, and he would be fighting for the chance to do it. Well, what do you mean? It's O'Brien. Come on. And he looks at him. He's like, sorry, Kira's call. Something to that effect, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing, my nitpick had to do with the change. Yeah. And I don't have a tie or a good fancy voice for it, but I will say that the fact that this changeling merged with Odo, like I couldn't really digest it and get it. Like they didn't explain it scientifically enough for me, for it's just like this thing just goes inside of him and now turns him into a changeling. And I'm like, well, I thought he's a human now. I thought he has human anatomy. I thought he's completely converted, right?
Right. So does that mean that if the changeling flew into Dr. Mora, that Dr. Mora could become a falcon or a seagull? I don't think so. But if Odo is a solid now, then having, a couple droplets of changeling goo go inside of him should not be able to make him turn into an Albanian hawk, I think is what it was. Albanian hawk.
Yes. Or no, it was a Tarkalian hawk, right?
You are right. We had 3 Trekkian names today. We had Tarkalian hawk, like Tarkalian tea. Yep. We had a Philian python and an Albanian spine mites. They use Albanian the most, right? We should have
spine, yeah.
If we started this at the beginning of the year, I bet you we'd have like 7 Albanian somethings by now.
Albanian is winning in the Trekkian nomenclature. Albanian is number 1. It has to be.
By a long shot.
We just have yet to see an Albanian. Yeah, I just want to know what the Albanians look like. If they develop an alien race that needs some development, it's the Albanians.
Right, because they get the most nams out of any alien race. The Albanians get the most non-appearance mentions.
Yeah, and clearly everybody knows about their animals and their teas and their drinks. Like they are like the biggest traders they're like China of the intergalactic space, right? Like everybody's got goods from Albania.
They're the movers and shakers. They got the spine mites. You want spine mites? You want tea? You want beetles? We got whatever you need. Albanian beehive. That was one of those.
Yeah, they got everything. This like they have the biggest open air market in the world. It's like Albanian aardvarks and everything you need. So I'd like to see what an Albanian looks like, and it's funny because back to what you were saying about how much is this changeling worth. If the changeling has the potential to change you into a changeling, it's even worth more.
Right.
It would be like, who wouldn't want that?
That's a good point. We've got 4 Albanian things here. We've got Albanian beehive, Albanian brandy, everybody's favorite, Albanian cave sloth, and now Albanian spine mite.
I swear they are producing big numbers, and the whole popular gamma, the whole alpha quadrant is up on them. So yeah, it's kind of pretty amazing how Albanians get around.
They do. They are the supply chain, and everybody else is a consumer. So we've got a few.
But you mentioned something about it. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. No, that was it.
No, I was going to say you mentioned about you mentioned the concept about the founder sending babies everywhere, and I thought that there's a little bit of something to just expand upon that. I thought that's an interesting idea, right? Like, so we want to know how you would react to us, how you would treat us, and so we send this gelatinous life form to you, and you figure out what you're going to do with it and how you're going to treat it, and and I thought that's an interesting concept. I guess in some ways or another, if you look at it on a micro scale, that's what countries do with its citizens, right? So a country, any country in the world, sends its people somewhere else, right? Yeah. And they say, well, go check that out. And if you make it back, then
we'll know they're okay.
And they don't kill us, right? Yeah, exactly. Then we'll know they're okay.
Yeah, so just imagine if we left America, for example, left a baby on the doorstep of all, 190 other countries. And then we wait 20 years and we see what happened. Some countries might eat it. Some might turn it into a king or queen, or others might, be discriminatory towards it or whatever, and then that's how you gauge and how you judge these other countries and these other races is by, as they said in the episode, how they treat, the weak and helpless, like a baby is. I thought that was a really, really good line. I don't know the exact line. I wrote it down, but basically they said, what better way to gauge a race than by how they treat the weak and helpless?
Yeah. I mean, do they enslave it? Do they put it in a cage on display like a zoo? I mean, there's so many different ways that you could react to something that's unknown or foreign to your own environment and you haven't seen before. But, Odo seemed to have turned out pretty good, in my opinion. Like, he turned out all right. He gave Dr. Moore a hard time as if he was working at a labor camp, with chains on his legs. He didn't have anything really restricting what he could do or however he could live his life. I didn't see him being oppressed in any type of way, even when he was at Tarek Noor under the previous occupation or administration, right? Mm-hmm. He still seemed to have power and respect, and he was working, he was accepted. It didn't seem like he was being outcasted because of who he was. So I just didn't see. The only thing I see him having as a difficulty is the loneliness of not having another person like you around to identify with. To me, that's the biggest hurdle that Odo has overcome in his life, was not knowing his origin and being the one-off and not having somebody to connect to.
Being the other,
but I didn't
being lonely.
See him being oppressed. Yeah. But I didn't see him being oppressed or being subjugated in some type of crazy way. Didn't seem like he lived a miserable life because he was who he was. He just seemed to have lived a lonely life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he definitely has treaded that line between feeling oppressed or feeling special and ahead. It's kind of like he felt worse than others in some ways, but above others in other ways. And he had, a difficult childhood, if you want to call it that. But now he has a different perspective to where he says, well, did this guy really have a choice? Did the doctor really have a choice? He was trying to protect me in a way. It was kind of a little bit of tough love in a way, they kind of had to zap the baby a little bit to get it to develop. And, it did kind of bring up an interesting theme of of tough love and parenting. Like, sometimes when you're a kid, you think, my parents are so evil. They're grounding me. They just, week, that's practically my whole life. And then when you get older, you're like, yeah, I deserve that. And way more for the stuff they didn't catch me for. You know what I mean? So it was an interesting perspective, It
is. It's, and I think that's where Dr. Mora was kind of like having that paternal feeling when he was looking at Odo, like trying to explain the discipline or whatever decisions he made to get the results that he needed to get. He was kind of in that paternal way saying, I had to whoop your ass so that you wouldn't be, a badass kid in the streets.
Right.
It's almost saying it like that. I had to make you learn how to shapeshift because you weren't doing it naturally. And I had to get it out of you and stimulate it. I didn't know how to get it out of you. And these were the ways that I tried. Now, was it a malicious thing? Did I try to hurt you? Was I trying to, cause pain, inflict pain on you? No, I wasn't. I didn't know that I was if I did. But I also was working under the circumstances and conditions that Captain Sisko is talking about, which is I have supervisors that are looking at me. I have a time deadline. Right? I have all of these things that are like other factors that are involved. It's not just me by myself coming up with different ways to torture you. I'm literally trying to find the answer to a problem or a riddle or a puzzle, and I'm doing what I think is scientifically best to get those results.
Right, and they give us that point of view, because otherwise, until then, we have Odo's point of view where we're like, oh, this guy's kind of a dick and he doesn't really care about Odo and he's just some scientist doing experiments on him. But then midway through the episode, Star Trek does what it does so well, which is it shows the other person's point of view, and it shows that not everything is black and white and super obvious. Eventually, when you dig deep enough, you go, even the people that are supposedly the bad person have more depth than just being the bad person, and sometimes end up not even being bad at all. But it seems like there's a lot more to talk about here, but we're just about out of time. So we'll talk about it more on the free-for-all.
Sweet.
But before we go to the free-for-all, Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score.
I'm going to be honest, not my favorite episode. It was a little bit slow at points. I'm just going to be straight up with that. And, so for that reason, I think they had to kind of put an end to Kira being pregnant and kind of put a bow on her not being pregnant anymore. So this was a kind of a necessity to kind of, put a period, full stop at the end of that Kira sentence with her being pregnant. So I'm going to say this was about a 6.9. That's kind of low. Maybe I'll say 7. 6.97.
It is rated on IMDb a 7.9, actually. Interesting.
Wow.
I know. So I want to find out from our free-for-all people why it was rated a little higher than one might think, because I'm sure a lot of them will have good reasons. Like last week or the week before, where we were all sure about something, then we asked the free-for-all, and they're like, no, you guys are wrong. I don't remember what it was, but they kind of told them, like, oh, yeah, maybe you guys are right. That's a good point. Anyway.
I want to know why this one was so high, and it's got to have some reasons, and we'll probably get some of that information when we talk to people at the free-for-all.
Right. Yeah. So special thanks to Carmen, a.k.a. Skillet, PJ Tomas, TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri, Bill Victor Arucan, Yvette Blackmon, Homer Frizzell, Eve England out in Wales, Dr. Anne-Marie Segal, Dr. Susan B. Gruner, Dr. Mohamed Noor, Timothy Baum, and Titus Mohler. Oh, and John Mann, and Mark Roco. We will be right back on the seventh rule for the free-for-all.
No, he would be the tennis player.
Hi, everybody.
Start recording.
And welcome to the free-for-all. We are joined by Melissa Longo, Dr. Mohamed Noor, Dr. Susan B. Gruner, Dr. Anne-Marie Segal, and Homer Frizzell that did kind of like a golf or a baseball swing when he zinged you.
Yeah.
It was half golf, half baseball.
And it was also something from like Johnny Carson, I think.
Right.
You BYO changeling.
Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of which, first things first, we need to settle something here. My nitpick was that if you have, and Quark is very business savvy, and he just sold a baby changeling for 8 strips of latinum. How much would come on? Like, wouldn't it be worth?
The Federation would have paid way more.
Yeah, and the Dominion would have given him a planet.
Yeah, but maybe they charge taxes.
But I don't think dead. They should be selling a sentient being.
Oh yes,
or a baby being that will be sentient.
Yes, that's true.
I mean, initially he thought it was a corpse, so it's like selling a mummy, but still, not. I just love that
second where like Quark sneaks in and grabs Odo's thumbprint.
Yeah, I like the way he grabs his thumbprint.
And like whoever did the mixing for the audio did such a good job with the sound effects. It was perfect.
It's hard to believe that Quark had any money.
I have a problem with the audio on Deep Space Nine. It's so low.
Yeah,
and it's off. by a few seconds when I.
It's off sometimes, and then it's also super low. Like I have to plug it to speakers and everything just to hear. And I'm like, I wish they would at least mix the sound, like remix the sound, so the volume is louder.
Well, I think maybe that's just a Paramount Plus thing, because I think on Netflix it was okay.
Yeah, on Amazon and everything. Actually, like usually my computer is really quiet, but it sounded good today.
It's fine.
I watch it on Netflix, and the sound is off by 4 seconds sometimes. The lag, or whatever you call it. It's really, really bad.
Wow, that's almost like the seventh rule.
Maybe we got the same sound, guys.
I love the music though in this one. There's something about like the music around this season, and then also like around this time in Voyager, just like really amps up. I think it's really beautiful.
I didn't pay attention to the music.
You start being able to tell like music cues for different people and like different kinds of emotions. I really love it.
I've never seen anybody cosplay wearing that Bajoran pregnancy scarf.
If I ever get pregnant, look out for me at STLV.
Speaking of which, everybody seems to be wearing somebody today, starting with Melissa Longo. Who are you wearing?
Oh my God, Joan Reverse.
Seventh rule.
Oh.
Dun, dun, dun.
And how do you get a discount at the Teespring store?
Become a patron. You can become a patron for only $1. How fabulous is that?
Very
good.
So that would be patreon.com/the seventh rule. Thank you very much, Anne Marie and Melissa, for mentioning that. That's really cool. But on that subject, Anne Marie, who are you wearing?
Oh my God, I'm also wearing the Teespring store, but a limited edition Captain Nog forever. However, it's a slouchy sweatshirt that still has like seventh rule stuff.
Awesome.
This is what red looks like, which I love.
Now, I think my quick glance tells me that we have 2, 2, and 2. That's like better than Chuck Woolery. Mohamed, who are you wearing right now?
I'm wearing the Chat Pack t-shirt from Walking Art made by Melissa. Actually, somebody asked me about it earlier today too, saying, "Oh, that's a cool shirt." I'm like, yes, it is.
Nice.
Wow.
That looks familiar.
And it looks like,
oh my God,
in a gorgeous red one. Beautiful.
I love the V-neck.
Oh yeah. I like the red too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. So everybody at home, check out the links below, patreon.com/the7th rule.
Homer's got one on too.
Right. And teespring.com/the 7th rule for the 7th rule shirts. Walking Art Made by Melissa.com. That's also in the description box below for the 2 that you just saw from Sue and Mohamed. And as Cirroc says, I think we've got two Melissa ones, 2 7th rule ones, and I think we've got 2 Abyssinian Kiosk. Am I right?
You are right. Yes, I have.
Ooh, styled up.
So cool.
Nice.
Linen blazer, and I also have Captain Nog.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Oh, let me see the mug. I didn't see the mug.
Two. I love
Hang
it.
on, let me.
So cute.
Gorgeous.
So cute.
I like it.
And lastly, Cirroc is also wearing Abyssinian Kiosk, which you can find in the description box below, abyssiniankiosk.com. Check it out.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Nice
Yep, this is one of my original vintage ones.
Ooh.
Washed a few times.
That's the Ethiopian lion you're saying?
Age well. Yeah, this is the Ethiopian lion, the symbol that's on the flag of the monarchy of Ethiopia, Haile Selassie and company. So yeah. And some of these Ethiopian Abyssinian Kiosk shirts, some of them really age very well, others not so much. But some of them, you wash them, and as they fade and look more old, I actually like the look of worn-in shirts that are all faded and look like they're cozy. So this is one of them for me.
And you're gonna love all my Megadeth shirts. Let me tell you.
That I don't love.
So here's the big question of the day with regards to this episode. I don't know if you guys have seen the episode recently, or if lots of nods, or if you just remember it vaguely. But it got a 7.9 on IMDb, which is maybe a little higher than what you gave it. Exactly a 7.9.
That's what I gave it.
10. Oh, I think it's better than that.
Oh, guess what?
Yeah, a 10, obviously.
So the question is, make your case, Anne-Marie. Why'd you give it a 10?
Because it's okay. First of all, I dare you to get through it without having like some really getting you in the feels. It's just so beautiful. And that second where you see Odo so like happy, and it's just such a. I feel like also that's one of the greatest like arguments for becoming a parent I've ever seen. Just the way he describes it, it's so beautiful, and the way that like he and Dr. Moira have that like really like real raw discussion about raising Odo versus raising the changeling, and sort of like there's so much Odo character growth. It's really beautiful. Plus, then there are all those like really funny moments, like Shakar and O'Brien fighting.
Homer, what do you think? Is 7.9 fair? Would you go lower or higher?
I think 7.9 is pretty close. Yeah. There were some moments like the birth scene. So it's like, I thought it moved a little too slowly. I thought some of it was done for comedy. I think O'Brien's percussion ability can't possibly be that bad and that off. And then I thought the whole Shakar and O'Brien squabble was, I know O'Brien can be quiet, but he didn't seem to be quiet, and he wanted his son to be born, yet he's being a distraction. So that part took me out of the A story.
Have you ever been in a room where somebody's giving birth? There's like crazy emotions running. Everybody's like way more exaggerated.
So perhaps they captured the essence of
like
that.
They captured that really well.
Okay. Yeah, I have not been.
But I respect your opinion. But I felt like it captured like the whole, like the craziness of baby delivery in a really real way.
And that was the music as well.
Well, I also love the music, but I mean, I just love Deep Space Nine music. And I feel like, you know, sometimes people do have really bad rhythm. Sometimes, like my dad.
Yeah, not everyone's.
Ooh, that's a good question. Next, Melissa, what do you think? 7.9 is fair. Would you rate it higher or lower? Did you like it? Why?
I think it's fair. I really like this episode. I think it's a touching episode, and to see how Odo becomes an unexpected parent, and how he embraces the role is really sweet, and it's nice to see this side of Odo rather than just the stiff, harumph. So I love Odo in this, and I love the interaction between Dr. Moira and Odo, and how it's kind of real life, how a child kind of learns why a parent does something the way they did it, and learns that parents aren't perfect and they're going to make mistakes. So it's a learning from each other, I think, from Dr. Moira and from Odo, of why they were the way they were in the past. So it's good insight in that too. And I like Bashir and Shakar fighting because it is funny to me, especially when they're pulling Kira off the bed. There's like, no, let me do it, and she's like, it's time.
Oh my god, I love your background so much too, where they're wearing the matching necklace.
They look like Doctor Who.
Yeah, kind of. But I have to agree with Anne-Marie, having watched my nephew being born. the delivery room is a highly emotional room. When you see a child being born, there's nothing like that. And so, yeah.
Kind of like when O'Brien, what was it? Shakar said, "Stay back there," and O'Brien's like, "But I can't see anything back there." And he says, "Exactly."
References Molly's birth.
What was he trying to like?
Well, you know, sometimes people even request mirrors to be there so that everybody in the room can see. I love Ryan's face right now. It's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Sue?
When you think about it, it's like that look, but then when you see it, it's like, holy crap, there's a whole human being coming out of another human being. It's incredible.
Yeah, but Shakar understandably doesn't want some guy watching his girlfriend's.
But also, why did Shakar want to watch? Is kind of one of my questions. Like, why was he so up in Kira's grill? Like,
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't his baby.
Hey,
this episode was missing Maury Povich. You know?
Oh my God, Pork should have fulfilled that role.
Hey, everybody! Scott Jensen is joining us right now.
Hey, Scott.
Hey, Scott.
What's up, guys?
So here's what we're doing, Scott. We're talking about this episode. It got a 7.9 on IMDb. Seems like it might. Some people were saying it may be a little high. Anne Marie said she gave it about a 4. Melissa said she'd give it about a 5.
No, that's incorrect.
Sue, what do you think? 7.9? Is it fair? Would you go a little lower? What do you think?
No, this is one of my favorite episodes. I like the contrast and the humor. It's got one of the greatest lines in Star Trek history for Worf anyway. Why are you talking to your beverage? I love that one.
Although that was really risky to bring the kid in a mug.
Walking around with it.
Yeah, with no cover on it either.
What if somebody drank it?
Drank it.
Horrible. Yeah.
Then they would turn into an Albanian falcon.
Yes, again, and there's another 10 points for me right there because I mentioned arthropods, Albanian spine mites.
Right.
Whatever they are, I like them.
I love it.
By the way, Scott, the episode is The Begotten.
I just caught it from Homer's background, and that was, oh man, yeah. Oh yeah, there it is over here.
Mohamed,
Ryan's puppet.
Mohamed, what do you think?
I agree with what everybody said. I think it's appropriate. And actually, I completely agree with the way Melissa described it, especially. I mean, this idea that, so many people have these, tensions, coming out of childhood, going into adulthood, like, oh, I didn't like that X happened. And this knowledge coming about of like, well, they did these things for a reason and really getting to appreciate it. And it was extra hard for Dr. Mohler because it's not like he had any other examples of anybody who'd ever worked with the changelings. I mean, he didn't even know this thing was alive at first.
Yeah.
So he had it really hard. And it was nice seeing that there was some acceptance that, he wasn't just an evil guy who was actually trying to do things. Oh, no, you guys were talking about the O'Brien with the bell too, but I again agree with Melissa perfectly that, I sat through both my kids getting delivered. And actually, I got to catch my daughter getting delivered, and everybody's tired. Everybody's exhausted. I mean, everybody's just so, oh my gosh, ready for this to be over. I think O'Brien was doing it with a little bit of attitude from impatience. I don't think it was actually his timing was that far off. He's like,
He actually hit it really hard, I think, when Shakar shows up and he's like, hey, what's up? And he's just kind of like,
Yeah.
Well, Scott, I don't know if you've seen the episode recently, but what do you think? Is 7.9 appropriate? Was it one of the more boring episodes? Was it a 10 like Anne Marie says every episode is?
I don't know about a 10, but I put it between that and a 7.9. When I'd first watched it, obviously, and I was, like a teenager when it was on, I didn't get it. But having grown up and going through some of the stuff that Dr. Mohler had gone through, and then eventually what Odo does at the end when he has to give the kid up, it's like, whoa, it's definitely completely different as an adult. particularly if you've had, children or nieces or nephews, whatever in your life. It is completely different. And I think it has only gotten better the older I've gotten. Mm-hmm. It's a hard one to watch, though. It's really difficult towards the end. I mean, there's some, silly, funny stuff and a lot of people to relate to in it as well. I feel like I can relate to almost everybody in there, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, so I'd probably put it at an 8 myself. I think 7.9 is fair, but could be a little higher.
That end, it's heartbreaking.
Oh, it's also the beginning of the end for Kira and Shakar.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. He needs to go.
Shakar's last episode.
He needs to go.
Wait. But Scott's also wearing a t-shirt.
Oh, the tiebreaker. It's the tiebreaker. There it is.
Melissa in the house.
Team Melissa wins.
Walking art made by Melissa wins. It's 3-2 to 2.
Oh man.
There are no losers here.
It's all winners.
Except the guy that's not wearing anybody.
I wasn't going to mention
the guy who's wearing Hanes.
He's wearing Hanes.
Is it Hanes?
It's Fruit of the Loom.
No, I love my Hanes V-necks.
What is it?
I know what it is.
Arizona.
Spotlight yourself.
Arizona.
Merone.
My Sharona.
Merone.
Oh, that's a shout out to Cirroc's sister.
Good one,
almost.
Melissa.
Oh yeah.
Very close.
No, I love a Hanes V-neck. So.
Another group that begins with a B.
Oh, Bananarama.
My Shiro.
Is that Bananarama?
I thought that was the knack.
Maybe.
I thought it was Bay City Rollers.
Oh. How many B bands are there? BG.
Wrong group.
Where's TJ Jackson?
Where's TJ?
Where is he?
We'll tag TJ in.
We need TJ.
Yeah.
All right.
Song expert.
We got to run. It's the end of the free-for-all, everybody. But this was a fun one. And everybody at home, make sure to comment below. Let us know what you think. Is 7.9 fair? As Scott says, this episode aged well, and a lot of these Deep Space Nine episodes age really well. Most TV shows from 20 or 30 or 40 years do the opposite of aging well in a big way. But Deep Space Nine really seems to just be better now, and we appreciate it more now than even back then. So big kudos to the writers and the actors that made that happen. And that's it for us on the Seventh Rule. Always remember the 7th rule. Keep your ears open. And anything else?
I have one last
Get your t-shirts for Las Vegas.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Homer.
Well, the end is really poignant, when the changeling, the dying child changeling transfers him or herself or their self into Odo. And I'd like to think they were alive for that entire flight around the station.
Oh, cute.
But we know that when Odo lands, he realizes that there's this change that comes over his face. And that the child definitely is no longer alive at that point. And maybe some point during the ride, they expired.
If it's inside of him, and then it dies, how will he release the dead? Well, I guess we don't have to talk about it.
We don't know. The link is a different thing.
But it's inside of him and it's dead, and his body needs to release it.
That you can just leave in there while you transplant more kidneys.
When he became a changeling again.
Yeah, re-changeling. So maybe that was part of it somehow.
Protoplasm.
Yeah.
By the way, Eva messaged us, and no spoilers, you guys. Be very careful with this. Okay. But she did say it's interesting to watch how Bashir reacts to the changeling, and
totally,
it's fun to watch. And where was he in most of this episode? But anyway,
also really fast, Scott Jensen has a little Nog and Jake in his background, and it's so cute. I just noticed it.
Oh wait,
the shuttle.
There they are.
There he is. They're on for a joyride and they're flying around.
That's so cute.
First place for Team Elisa.
Eagle Eye Seagull. Good job. Anne-Marie Eagle Eye. All right. All right. That's it for us. Always remember the 7th rule.